So think about the last time you handed someone a gift. Or, perhaps the last time you donated to a charity. What was actually going through your mind? Were you secretly hoping for a thank you, maybe a tax deduction, or maybe just that warm, fuzzy feeling that comes from doing a good deed? See, we often think of charity as this super simple transaction. We have something, we give it to someone who needs it, and we move on. But what if the act of giving was actually a profound psychological and spiritual practice? What if the way you give is actually way more important than what you give? Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going to explore the fascinating anatomy of a gift by looking at a concept that has literally shaped the social and spiritual fabric of Indian religions for thousands of years. We're focusing on the role of Vedic dana. Because, as it turns out, ancient texts from India didn't just tell people to, be nice to each other. They actually created an incredibly sophisticated, highly nuanced framework for charity, generosity, and the exact intent behind it. Okay, let's dive into this. The term we're unpacking today is dana. It's a Sanskrit and Pali word that basically connotes the virtue of generosity, charity, or giving alms. But traditional texts take this definition a massive step further. They define dana specifically as the action of relinquishing the ownership of what you consider to be yours and investing that exact same thing in a recipient entirely without expecting anything in return. Seriously, it's not a loan. It's not a trade. It is an absolute, complete release of ownership. Here is our roadmap for this explainer. 1. Defining the art of giving. 2. The roots of Vedic dana. 3. The rules of true charity. 4. Beyond wealth, types of dana. And 5. The ripple effect of giving. Starting right off with Chapter 1, Defining the Art of Giving, understanding the foundational concept of generosity. So dana is, it's so much more than just tossing a coin into a collection bin. In early Indian texts, dana is intricately tied to a related concept called paropakara, which translates roughly to benevolent deeds or helping others. And what's absolutely fascinating here is the sheer scale of how giving was imagined. Yes, dana absolutely involves giving to an individual in distress or need, but it also scales way, way up to massive public philanthropic projects. These texts discuss charity aimed at public benefit, sometimes called utsarga, which includes empowering whole communities. We're talking building rest houses, schools, drinking water wells, irrigation systems, planting trees, or building care facilities. It is individual compassion scaled up to systemic societal support. Let's move along to Chapter 2, The Roots of Vedic Dana, tracing charity through ancient texts. Let's move to the timeline and see how this builds over time. The concept of dana traces all the way back to the Vedic traditions. We first see it discussed in the Rig Veda, which focuses heavily on giving to those in distress. Fast forward a bit to the era before 500 BCE, and the Upanishads deeply expand on dana as a philosophical imperative tied to your own personal development. And later, as we move into the medieval era, texts like the Puranas actually start codifying the very specific rules of what makes charity proper or improper. To really grasp the earliest mindset here, just slow down and listen to the sheer gravity of this quote from the Rig Veda, Hymn 117. It warns that wealth is constantly rolling like the wheels of a chariot, coming to one person now and another later. It declares, "The foolish man wins food with fruitless labor. That food, I speak the truth, shall be his ruin. He feeds no trusty friend, no man to love him. All guilt is he who eats with no partaker." The ancient text is pointing directly to the profound psychological guilt and ultimate ruin associated with keeping absolutely everything for yourself while others go hungry. Now, by the time we hit the Upanishads around 500 BCE, dana becomes deeply, deeply intertwined with character development. The Brihad Aranyaka Upanishad beautifully outlines 3 essential characteristics of a developed, good person. First up is dhamma, meaning self-restraint. Second is daya, which is compassion and love for all sentient life. And the third is dana, charity. You see how they interlock, right? Generosity isn't just some isolated event. It's the natural, physical manifestation of an internal compassion and self-restraint. Which brings us to Chapter 3. The rules of true charity, the mechanics and intent of giving. And this brilliantly illustrates that actually not all giving is considered good giving. Proper dana is recommended to be given from your surplus income, always done without expecting a return, and requires you to be highly mindful of who you are giving to.
Conversely, improper dana is just reckless. If your charity endangers or cripples the modest livelihood of your own biological dependents, it is deemed completely inappropriate. It's a fascinatingly grounded rule. You can't be truly charitable to strangers if you're simultaneously giving away your own family's grocery money.
Furthermore, medieval scholars really emphasized that dana is most effective when performed with shraddha, which loosely translates to faith. But look at how they define this faith in the context of charity. It means giving with goodwill, a cheerful demeanor, providing unquestioning hospitality, and giving without anasuya, which basically means without finding faults in the recipient. Have you ever seen someone give a homeless person $1 but use the opportunity to lecture them? Yeah, that completely violates this principle. True intent requires delight, genuine hospitality, and a total suspension of judgment. Texts like the Vyasa Samhita basically summarize this by declaring that the donor's intent and their responsibility for diligence about the effect the gift will actually have on the recipient is just as important as the gift itself. Dana is a dharmic or moral act. It requires an idealistic, normative approach. You don't just blindly open your wallet to appease your own guilt, You have a real duty to ensure your giving actually serves the recipient and society positively in the long run.
All right, Chapter 4, Beyond Wealth, the Many Forms of Generosity.
Now, we've talked a lot about wealth, but what if you literally don't have surplus money? Well, the true beauty of this framework is that you don't need financial wealth to practice dana. Hindu texts outline incredibly diverse categories of giving. Just look at this breakdown. You have Vidya Dana, the gift of knowledge, where you share skills and teach others. There's Abhaya Dana, the gift of freedom from fear, which means giving asylum or protection to someone facing an imminent threat. There's Annadana, the direct giving of food to the needy and visitors. And Aushadha Dana, the charity of medical care for the sick. Money is merely one vehicle. Your intellect, your kitchen, and your courage to protect others are all equally valid forms of dana. And what is truly remarkable here is how universal this exact categorization became. Moving briskly to texts from Jainism, another major Indian religion, we see the exact same 4 pillars of dana highlighted as a vital duty. Ahara dana for food, Asudha dana for medicine, Jnana dana for knowledge, and Abhaya dana for protection. In Jainism, this is considered a core act of compassion and one of the absolute primary means to gain positive karma. Over in the Buddhist tradition, generosity can also be material or immaterial, but Buddhism specifically elevates spiritual giving way above all else. This is known as Dhamma dana. The Buddha taught that the gift of noble teachings surpasses all other material gifts. Sharing wisdom, elucidating teachings, or even just helping support those who teach meditation is considered the ultimate form of generosity, simply because it addresses the very root of suffering itself. And finally, Chapter 5, The Ripple Effect of Giving, looking at karma and cross-tradition evolution. Ultimately, dana is viewed as a dharmic act that generates good karma. By doing good, you are fundamentally altering your own future circumstances. It relies on the reciprocity principle of social life, that good charitable deeds create a much better environment for everyone, which inevitably benefits you too. But texts like the Vyasa Samhita note that beyond just social reciprocity, dana is a virtue in itself, because the simple act of doing good fundamentally lifts and elevates the inner nature of the person who gives. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how dana was viewed not just as some abstract spiritual exercise, but as a deeply practical tool for social cohesion. An ancient Hindu proverb states, living creatures get influenced through danam, enemies lose hostility through danam, a stranger may become a loved one through danam, vices are killed by danam. Generosity was quite literally prescribed as the cure for social hostility and personal vice. And this Vedic seed literally blossomed across almost every major tradition originating in the region, influencing billions of people alive today. In Buddhism, unattached giving, dana paramita, purifies the mind and directly reduces the egotism that causes suffering. In Jainism, it's a crucial duty that sustains their monastics, who are actually forbidden from buying or making their own food. In Sikhism, the duty of dana is practiced as vand chako, sharing one's earnings, engaging in selfless service, and participating in the langar, the free community kitchen where absolutely all are fed equally. So we've seen that the ancient practice of dana isn't just about moving resources from point A to point B. It's like an intricate dance of compassion, diligence, surplus, and letting go of our ego completely without expecting a single thing in return. So the next time you offer a gift, your time, or your expertise, I'm going to leave you with this question. If the true measure of a gift is the intent behind it and the cheerful, unquestioning hospitality with which it's given,
What are you truly giving?